You are listening to the Centaku Media Podcast, a source for sharing interests beyond the scope of anime because we're in the center of other otaku interests. Hey everyone, welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Centaku Media Journal. I am your host, Sanjo-chan, and this episode was supposed to be released a week earlier, but due to unforeseen circumstances, it had to be delayed. On top of other things, which I could get into, but I'm going to try to keep it short and simple. But of course, this episode is not really much to report on as far as news if you've listened to the show before. But for those that are just tuning in, the Centaku Media Journal is a bi-weekly series where I talk about the latest trends in the world of anime, gaming, and music, and especially for those that enjoy K-pop and J-pop. So this is the first episode of the new year as well, so I figured I kick off the first season reflecting and looking ahead of the future. We have like a huge future ahead of us with everything that's going on in this past crazy year. So 2020 can just go away. Like, it's gone away. But of course, with it being maybe at the 2-week mark of 2021, it's a little crazy already. So I'm not going to go into detail on why that is, because we all know it, and it's very ridiculous, considering the consequences, but we are like on a path of positivity, right? So that's what this episode is going to be about. I want to try just to look positive. Like, we are going to talk about everything that's happened in 2020 and then what my wish list is for 2021. So I guess you could say this is on the last episode of AKIRA. So this is a little inside joke for those that, of course, I'm pretty sure with 2020, you have time on your hands and you've looked at all the memes that were about 2020. So one of them being about AKIRA, because it takes place in the distant future, right? And at one point, there was a prediction that the Tokyo Olympics would be held in 2020, but of course it didn't happen due to unforeseen circumstances. But of course, it's still on for 2021, and of course, hopefully by the summer things will look a lot better, considering the vaccine rollout and all that promising stuff. So yeah, so we're going to basically revisit Akira Land and just talk about everything that's happened while I was gone and everything I'm looking forward to for this year. So this is going to be, it's not really organized. Like, I know the last couple of months have been crazy since I recorded the last episode of the Centaku Media Journal. So I think, if I remember correctly, I think it was like the end of October, I closed out the first season of the journal. And I also wanted to record like a special episode since then, but I know that wasn't the case. I just, I just want to relax, right? I'm just going to relax. October 30th, that was the last date of the episode that was posted. So, I guess I'll talk about what happened starting from November. So, personally, I had COVID, so yes. And I've talked to my friends and coworkers at my day job, telling them how it all went down. Thankfully, it was mild symptoms, not serious as many people, unfortunately, have gone through. And like I said, it could have been worse, so I'm really thankful that that's all it was. It started with the headache, because I thought it was a sinus infection, but it wasn't. After I had a fever, and then I had some pain, like in my back, like upper back, there was some pain there. And ultimately, it was the nose congestion. I think that's what was the unpleasant thing about the whole ordeal. And I did lose my sense of smell, because it's one of the issues you have. You either lose your sense of smell or your taste, but for me, it was my sense of smell. Thankfully, I got it back now, so I can smell. I'm actually cooking dinner as I record this. Although, of course, I'm recording bits and pieces, so I can check on the food, so no worries. But yeah, I can smell the spices I use from all the way in this room from the kitchen. So that's progress, right? A lot of progress. So pretty much everything's back to normal for me. And as far as like fatigue goes, like, I didn't have any of that. If anything, I stayed up a little longer than I should have on the nights I had to quarantine. And I managed to catch up playing Final Fantasy 14. And for those that haven't heard it in a while from me. I always talk about Final Fantasy 14, so I finally caught up with Shadowbringers, and I'm also finished the game as well. I finished the game, but I'm still working on patch 5.3 and 5. About to go into 5.4 eventually, as of recording this. So yeah, I had a lot of time to catch up with that. If anything, I see them till like 1 a.m. on some nights. I was sick, and I went hiking actually a couple of weeks ago, and it took a lot out of me. So that was like one thing about it. But I had to get out because, it's the new year. Had to, basically get back in shape, especially since COVID took me down a little bit. But yeah, I'm a lot better now, and especially mentally. So that's why I went ahead and said, you know what, this is my day to record this podcast, because like last week I had issues where I was just overwhelmed. I'm like, I just can't do this. I didn't even stream on Twitch, which is, by the way, Centaku Media on twitch.tv, if you are interested in seeing what I am playing at the moment. But yes, I had COVID week before Thanksgiving, just to be exact, so I'm alright. But anyway, enough about me. We're going to talk about what's happened past year as far as the anime, gaming, and K-pop, J-pop community is concerned. And I don't know where to put this, but it's actually kind of sad news. And actually, I'm going to put a link in the show notes from Anime News Network of the list of people that we've lost in 2020 that were involved in the anime, possibly gaming community. And one of them was actually the same week I got sick, and that was the untimely passing of Kirby Morrow. And for those that don't know who he is, he was the voice of Troa Barden in Gundam Wing, and he was also the voice of Miroku in Inuyasha. And this past year, he was recast as Miroku for the new Yashahime, a spinoff of Inuyasha. And I will say that it's unfortunate considering, his performance in the show. Like, of course, he gave us all as Miroku like he used to back in the Inuyasha days, but apparently there was a sign where something was wrong because he sounded rough. It didn't sound like him, so it's kind of one of those stories where I just don't want to go back into it because it was just so shocking. I just don't want to dig deep into it unless I just come across it by chance. But people were debating on whether if he had COVID or not, or if there was something else that he just hasn't like shared with anyone that was wrong. But of course, a lot of people are recording a lot of voice work remotely due to the current situation. So I'm pretty sure he probably was, at home when he recorded those lines. But yes, that was really unfortunate considering that Troa Barden is my favorite character and it's my favorite performance of his growing up. It was just, I can't, it's just really, really sad, and it's, really sad, definitely. So that was one of my, why couldn't it be at any other time if not never, considering the circumstances. So that was one unfortunate news to end out 2020 for me. But just to, look things, have a better outlook of things moving forward. There's a lot of projects planned for 2021 that were not seen in 2020, and one of them is being basically reschedules of animes that were anime and movie projects that were supposed to happen last year, of course. So one of them is being Hathaway's Flash, which I've talked about on the blog in the past, and it was supposed to come out in June or July last year, but it got rescheduled for May of 2021. And of course, as of recording this, it's looking like a lot of projects are going to get postponed because due to this new variant of COVID-19 going around, Japan is putting a lot of prefectures under a state of emergency. So that means they have to basically go back into lockdown. And of course, it'll be a while before Japan gets a vaccine, and they're right now making bids to secure vaccines from the three main distributors that have the vaccine right now. So it'll be a little longer, but of course, as I speak, a lot of winter anime shows are underway for the winter season. And one of them being Dr. Stone, which I think is out now as of recording this. So I am really looking forward to that. And of course, a lot of plays and other movies that was supposed to be scheduled like in the next month or two, is looking unlikely. So hopefully within due time we'll be able to see these in one way or another. But I think the biggest thing of all going into 2020 is the Demon Slayer movie, because that was a huge hit and apparently it surpassed a lot of box office records of previous anime movies, considering the state of the world that it is in now. Just for a reference, a quick reference, the Demon Slayer movie surpassed Spirited Away, which was originally released in 2002, where it originally earned 30.8 billion yen in its original run, and Spirited Away was re-released in theaters last summer, so it reclaimed its spot eventually, and of course, it's been a struggle between Spirited Away and, I guess, one of the Pokemon movies, and I think most recently the Broly movie, and possibly My Hero Academia, I don't know. But just think about it, that's kind of an accomplishment, just considering everything that's in now. So, yes, the Demon Slayer movie's actually a runner-up of, compared to Spirited Away. So Spirited Away is still up there for a while, but, like, what's the next movie that will dethrone Demon Slayer? But we'll find out. But anyway, speaking of movies, so one of the things that a lot of people have been looking forward to for years is the final Evangelion movie, which was originally supposed to be released like years ago, but there have been some like delays. I think there might have been a like legal issue involved with it. And actually, I watched the first two films several years back. Actually, we had them in town here in Chattanooga when we had our anime club, and every Saturday we would have screenings at the library, and they were pretty good, because I've actually never ever watched Evangelion, and I think it's still on Netflix because it's been redubbed, as that's like one show that I have yet to indulge in, considering my appreciation for Gundam, because you think, oh well, if you like Gundam, you ought to like Evangelion, but it's just like one show I've never, had a reason to watch yet. But it'll get there eventually. So I've watched Evangelion in one form, but the other movie is called 3.33 or something like that. But yeah, so eventually we'll watch it all. Be able to watch all three films soon, or if not, we can just watch the original series on Netflix if it's still on there. And what's time to say? What else? Of course, there's the possibility of the Dragon Ball Super anime returning, but of course we haven't heard anything yet. I guess it's been 2 years, and if not, it's probably a little longer before we find out anything as far as production goes, considering that the parts of Japan are going back into states of emergency, so they'll probably put some production issues for some studios. And one other, I'm trying to say, what else is there? Like, there's just so much to go on. Of course, for like first 2 weeks of the year, like anything can happen. But of course, a lot of the stuff that's just coming out, I'll talk about in the next episode of the Centaku Media Journal. Should be back to normal. Everything should be back to normal in the next episode with my usual productivity line as far as talking about anime, gaming, and music. But unless, like I said, I can't think of anything else anime-wise, but like that's my biggest thing is the Hathaway's Flash movie, and of course, like I said, Dr. Stone. Oh, and no, that's next year. That is next year. But just thinking about it, like we got one more year to wait. So, Tiger and Bunny is returning, but it won't be until 2022. But I'm pretty sure we'll find out some trailers for this year. So I think that'd be one thing to look forward to this year is trailers of season 2 of Tiger and Bunny. So that's my outlook for the anime horizon. But moving on, we're going to talk about a little bit of gaming. So we're going to spend a little bit of time in gaming and some music too, just to keep it short, as I said in the beginning. So for gaming, a lot to look forward to this year. So, of course, the biggest game that people will be waiting for this year is Final Fantasy 16, because that was announced last year. And from what it looks like, it's like, I want to say like 40% of the game is finished, just based on what we've seen of the trailers. And ever since I went off the air from the first season, they have revealed more details of who the characters are that we've seen in the trailer, at least the heroes. And of course, the main character, his name is Joshua, which is, kind of I guess totally different from, I don't know, Noctis and Tidus and Squall and Cloud, definitely. But just Joshua, that's it. But we'll find out more information as the days go on of 2021 leading up to the release. I'm pretty sure it won't be until E3 that we'll find out more details about the game and probably a release date. I imagine it won't be released until March of 2022 because I think Square Enix's fiscal year ends, or rather begins in March or something like that. So unless it gets delayed again, because that was the case with Final Fantasy 15, was originally going to be released like in the spring, but it got delayed until November. And of course, it was kind of needed considering with the game it's been through over the past, in its 10 years of development. So we'll see how Final Fantasy 16 turns out, but of course the game is being helmed by Naoki Yoshida, or Yoshi P, who is also involved with Final Fantasy 14. And also, speaking of Final Fantasy 14, there's also news I am looking forward to for next month, and I'm sure for those that play Final Fantasy 14 listening to this show, y'all know what I'm talking about. And there's going to be a Final Fantasy 14 digital event in lieu of their physical event they normally have, considering the turn of events. So for those that are playing 14 right now, we've had patch 5.41, which adds a few more things and adds a few more like minor things to the game, including some new additions to the Final Fantasy 14 shop, where you can buy stuff for your characters rather. And I will talk about this in the next episode of the journal, which will be, included in our gaming segment. But apparently there's a message from Yoshida explaining what he sees in the future of Final Fantasy 14. But personally, I'm actually at 5.3, and by the time I get through 5.4, I'll be looking forward to what expansion pack number 4 will bring, if that's what they'll announce. I mean, they'll have to announce it, because considering the timeline, rather the time frame of the previous expansion pack is like every 2 years, and I believe Heavensward was released in 2015, Stormblood released in 2017, and then Shadowbringers was released in 2019. So of course 2021, we're due about another expansion pack. But like I said, I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next episode, because it might be some more details that it will take a little too long for me to explain in this episode. But so those are the things I'm looking forward to concerning Final Fantasy. And other games, for other games, hopefully we'll find out more information about Overwatch 2. And of course, I still am sometimes, but not as much as I was maybe several months ago, Overwatch. So I believe they've released a new map for the game recently as I've recorded this, and I have yet to check it out because I just don't have the patience for Overwatch. Like I said, as I used to. It's just I'm focusing on 14 now, so that's my thing. But yeah, so Overwatch 2, hopefully we'll find some more details about that. Really, I can't think of anything else. Well, like, we're so early into the year. Of course, it'll be a matter of time before we find out anything exciting. But one way we find out is if you subscribe to the podcast for future episodes of the journal, which will be released every 2 weeks. But I know it's a shameless plug, but I will talk about if there's anything of interest. One other thing I guess I can go into as a segue, or rather, I don't know if it's really a segue, but in fact, I'm just gonna hop on over to our next area of fandom, and of course, that's music. So, J-pop wise, I will say that there's actually been like a slight development I've noticed with J-pop, but it's kind of technical that I can't go into detail now. But I will say, just if you go to Spotify right now, if you're in the US, if you go to Spotify and type in a opening or ending theme of an anime song from, let's say, Bleach, chances are it might be on there. I'll just say that. I think that's like one surprise that I found out on my own. And there's some like Japanese music sites I do keep up with, but for some reason, I'm still old. I'm a dinosaur, so I use feed readers, right? So I still have I'm subscribed to some websites, K-pop related websites where I get all my information on the latest news on the K-pop industry. But J-pop, not so much, or at least the one website I check. Normally they don't have an active RSS feed, or rather they do, but it's like delayed. And then there's one site that is kind of like dead sometimes. It's here and there, but yeah. So anyway, long story short, there might be some Sony Music songs up on Sony Music Japan rather, songs on Spotify. But anyway, I'll get into detail in a future episode, maybe a blog post. But anyway, going to K-pop though. So K-pop, of course, 2020 has been quite a year for K-pop. And of course, we have our share of scandals, where towards the very end of 2020, Il-hoon of B2B got into legal trouble, and he is no longer with the group. But of course, I'll explain that in a future episode, or you can find out about it yourself. But of course, it's just, I guess, what you call SSDD, if you know what I mean. And like, of course, with fame it comes consequences. So, provided that you're on your best behavior, you can avoid all these for a long time to come. But yeah. So of course we had scandals, like, in between the year's end and the beginning of the year, but also we were met with some unfortunate disbandment announcements. So Gugudan, this is a girl group. They disbanded on New Year's Eve, I believe, and GOT7 it will be disbanding soon, as all the members of the group, all 7 members of GOT7, are not renewing their contracts, and they are looking forward to pursuing individual projects in the future. So, sad news, and we kind of knew it was coming because they surpassed that 5-year curse mark, but it seems that just with everything, like, release-wise, it seems to be winding down. Kind of like new content in the game, like Final Fantasy 15, considering like, oh yeah, we get all this new content, and then we release this last one thing after a while, and then like, we're done. So that's kind of the way I saw it, unfortunately, and that's where it's coming down to. So there's that. And of course, concerts will probably make a comeback because, of course, with COVID-19, the pandemic raging on, it's just not possible to have concerts, although there will be online concerts for those that, want an safe alternative to physical concerts. But of course, there's still the BTS concert we're looking forward to, which I still have my ticket for last year because they were supposed to perform in Atlanta, but it just didn't happen, of course. And Flow, which is a Japanese group. Okay, I guess that's my Japanese J-pop thing I'm looking forward to, is the Flow concert, because that was originally scheduled around end of May, but I believe they rescheduled for June 1st at Center Stage. So, provided nothing bad happens between now and then that's a possibility that it might happen. So, that's one thing I'm looking forward to. But also BTS, we don't know when they'll reschedule it, and of course, hopefully, all of the members of BTS will be able to perform, because at the end of last year, when I was on hiatus from the journal, they apparently passed a bill where it would exempt BTS, all the members of BTS, a couple of years before they can go into the army, but not completely. They still have to perform their service to the country, but basically it goes back to the old law for a lot of male celebrities, where they can postpone their enlistment till the age of 30, but now it's like 25. So that gives BTS a little bit more time to, perform for everyone, because of how crazy they are, basically, to get exempt from that. And Big Bang, Big Bang, they're my group. I've been following them since they debuted in 2006. And of course, there've been some quite a shakeup within the group. So as a 4-member group, they will be making a comeback at some point. They were actually supposed to be making a comeback last year, but of course that had to get pushed to the side for a little bit. But it seems very likely this year, provided the conditions are perfect. So that's my outlook for K-pop, and that's my outlook for 2021. So I hope you enjoyed what I've had to say. It feels like there's more I could say, but this is all I have for right now. And considering that we're still in the very early days of the new year, there will be more to look forward to as we go along. And I hope you enjoyed this first episode of season 2. And if you're new to the podcast, be sure to check out past episodes of the journal. Even though all the news stories are out of date, I still have some insightful things to say about everything that's happened in the past year. And also be sure to tune in to special episodes of the podcast, which I normally post at the end of the month, at the last Wednesday of the month. I do have one in the pipeline for January. Hopefully I get it out on time. Also for the journal, they were originally scheduled for every 2 Wednesdays of each month. But as of recording this will be every Saturday. So basically every 2 Saturdays. So, next week will be a new episode of the podcast, because since I didn't record this in time for the 9th, there will be a second episode of the journal on there'll be a new episode in the journal on January 22nd. So be sure to look forward to it. And also there is a new special episode, or rather special segment of the podcast as a whole, called the AKIRA stream, which I've talked about on Centakumedia.com on the blog. And basically, if there's a rant, something I want to go into detail about that I talk about in the journal, basically I created a whole episode, rather segment, around that topic. And it might be a controversial approach to it as well. So that's why I decided to give it its own separate segment of the whole show, or rather the whole the podcast medium of Centaku Media. So be sure to look forward to that. I haven't set... I had an idea in mind of how often I want to post these episodes, but it looks like it won't be until February at this rate. So be sure to look forward to that. And if you are new to Centaku Media, be sure to check out centakumedia.com, where I have original posts where I have observations of the anime, gaming, and music communities for those that are into J-pop and K-pop, as well as social media, which you can find on at Centaku Media on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and also on Twitch, twitch.tv/Centaku Media, and on the YouTube channel, Centaku-chan. And also, one other thing, so I do have the first 7 episodes of season 1 of the Centaku Media Journal, which you can quote-unquote listen to from YouTube if that's your preferred platform, but it's also a way to get those interested on the show to listen to the podcast. So they got options, but I'm only releasing half of season as I go along. So by the time I hit hiatus for season 2, I'll post the last half of season 1, so that way you got a complete season on there, and then you got new episodes to listen to on anchor.fm, which is where you can listen to new episodes of the podcast, as well as on Spotify, Google, Amazon, Stitcher, and Apple. And it feels like I'm missing a couple of other platforms, but almost every platform you can think of, that's where you can listen to the Centaku Media podcast. But anyway, enough of the plug. You know where to find us, or rather, you know where to find me. I am Sanjo-chan, and thank you for listening. Happy belated New Year, and until next time, so long. Forget your last betray. I'll never forget this day.